Get ready for an epic adventure as we dive into the thrilling world of Rise of the Ronin. Follow our hero as he battles his way through treacherous terrain, faces fierce enemies, and uncovers ancient secrets. Join me for a heart-pumping review of this action-packed masterpiece. If someone tells me a game will take several hours to get good at, my immediate feeling is that I'll never play that game. Who has hours to waste waiting for the good part of anything when there are so many other good games to play? But in my opinion, Rise of the Ronin changed drastically over the course of my 45 hours of playtime. In the first 5 to 10 hours I didn't really like it, but by the end I was planning to dive back in to clear out any side quests and replay key moments to see how the story might change. It is a game that takes time to get good, but once it finds its footing in samurai sword duels and character-focused missions, your investment pays off. The thing that turned the tide for me is the way Rise of the Ronin focuses on telling small, character-driven stories that weave together into a large, history-shaping narrative. The entire game is built on its bond system, where doing side quests big and small build your relationship with everyone, from the different provinces of Ronin's massive open world Japan to the many characters you may meet throughout the course of the game. Though the bond system isn't particularly different from building up faction reputation, liberating map segments, or growing relationship stats with characters like you may see in other games, the focus on investing in all of those things and people is illustrative of Team Ninja's approach to the entire game. Your personal connections to everything in Rise of the Ronin are what makes it work, and the reason it's worth to power through its learning curve and less remarkable opening hours. Rise of the Ronin puts you into the role of a samurai trained alongside another warrior from childhood to be an unstoppable sword-wielding fighting duo for a group called the Veiled Edge. It's in the 1860s and Japan is opening itself to foreign powers, including the United States and England, creating political strife.
Let's do this together.
On a mission to assassinate a powerful American, your blade twin sacrifices themselves so you can escape. Soon after, the rest of the Veiled Edge is wiped out for rebelling against Japan's government, the shogunate. You set out alone, a Ronin warrior without a clan, but soon discover your blade twin is rumored to have survived. What ensues is a lot of politics, intrigue, and adventure. You and every fighter you come across have both a health bar and a ki gauge, which is akin to a stamina meter. Ki powers every blow, dodge, and block. And if you run out of ki and you are struck while blocking, you'll be dazed for a few seconds, opening you up to more punishment. Your goal in every fight, especially with tougher opponents, is to strike blows while parrying their attacks, breaking their rhythm and whittling down their ki to stagger them. When staggered, most normal enemies can be executed while tougher foes and bosses take a big hit, then get their ki back to go to another round. It sounds pretty standard, especially with the ubiquity of Souls-like and similar styles of swordplay focused on parrying, stamina, and breaking an enemy's posture. Rise of the Ronin has its own take on the approach though, and it took me a while to build up to the skill to actually enjoy it. The main two elements of sword fights are martial attacks, which are powerful special moves, and counter sparks, which are flowery parry moves. Like Sekiro and its posture system, your main goal in Rise of the Ronin is to parry enemy blows until you can stagger them, but counter sparks are kinda weird, especially at first. They're not just straight parries, they are fast, short-range attacks with their own forward momentum. Missing the timing on a parry usually means you still hit the opponent and the opponent hits you, but there are plenty of times where a counter spark can move you past the enemy altogether. It creates a strange flow to your fight movements that takes a lot of getting used to. Ronin wants fights to be fast and aggressive, so if you counter-spark certain attacks, you'll knock the enemy off balance and open up a brief counter-strike opportunity. This also creates an unusual rhythm. You can counter-spark most of a combo chain from an enemy to no benefit, because the only attack that truly matters for parrying is the last or strongest in the chain. This means that your strategy should actually be to safely block your way through a series of attacks and counter-spark only the final move. That requirement makes counter-sparks unintuitive because the urge to parry has to be strategically resisted. Sometimes you can skillfully parry a bunch of moves in a row and wind up being punished for it anyways. Other times you may be rewarded just for hammering the button against a tough opponent. Mostly though, you are spending the first few battles against any tough enemy trying to figure out when the correct time to parry is and getting demolished by quick, relentless strikes in the meantime. It's not a bad parry system. I came to enjoy Rise of the Ronin's approach quite a bit once I understood how it worked and could start to read its enemies and their attacks. But the extra motion and timing are at odds with similar games, so you'll have to unlearn a few things to accumulate yourself. Enemy martial attacks are marked by a red glow that indicates you can't just block them like you can with normal strikes. That means you have to avoid them with a well-timed dodge or knock them down with a perfectly timed counter spark for big key damage. You have martial attacks of your own that are great as counterattacks when you successfully knock an enemy off balance, but they are not unblockable like enemy ones are and cost extra ki to execute. Martial attacks are cool additions to your arsenal, but in enemy hands they add to the learning curve and pile on some frustration in the early game, as fighting in Rise of the Ronin is usually very fast. You'll often get hit with a series of attacks you have to block your way through, taking a ton of damage to your ki, only to get blasted by a devastating martial attack that cuts your defenses and hurts you even more. Then you get staggered, leaving you open to further walloping or knocked off your feet, and subject to standing up animation that lasts just as long for the enemy to lay into you again with no defenses. One screw up can lead to a beatdown that's tough to recover from. Especially early on, this combat pacing is annoyingly brutal. One particular early boss had a massive difficulty spike that held me up for a couple of hours. For a game that easily lasts more than 50 hours and has a similar fight at the end of every single mission, being stuck on the same boss for that long was grueling. Fortunately, Rise of the Ronin lets you change the difficulty whenever you want, so you can drop to its easier mode if a fight's giving you trouble, then increase the challenge once you're over the hump. Now guys, for me, I did not do this. I stuck on the hardest difficulty and challenged on, and I won the battle, and I felt so great. It was incredible. It was only later that I started to appreciate the combat system's combination of elements. That includes the timing of counter sparks as well as things like the ability to change your fighting style on the fly once you've learned new ones. When you approach an enemy, an icon will appear next to their name that indicates both how tough the fight they'll be and whether their fighting style is strong or weak to your own. You can have two main weapons equipped at a time, which include katanas, odachis, European style sabers, and great swords and spears, and 3 styles for each one, which can be quickly swapped to deal with just about any opponent. Picking the right style to deal with an enemy greatly enhances the effectiveness of your counter spark, so once I got the hang of parrying and using the right styles and weapons for certain enemies, battles started to click, becoming intense, hard-fought duels that also made me feel like a legendary swordsman. Against the toughest of enemies, it also pays to make use of your allies. You'll meander through the open world alone, but just about every major story mission or side quest is an instance level where you have 1 or 2 computer-controlled allies backing you up, playing into the twin blade concept. You can play cooperatively with other humans in the place of AI buddies, but when you play alone you are able to swap between characters on the fly. The AI characters all have their own styles and moves that you can learn and take advantage of, but the best part is the way they enable you to overwhelm an enemy, quickly swapping around to get behind their guard and take advantage of their divided attention. It's another aspect that takes a while to get good at using, but which sets apart Rise of the Ronin's combat and makes it intense and chaotic in a good way. The Blade Twin story isn't a particularly compelling one, and while it's the framing device that's supposed to drive your character, it doesn't get a lot of screen time. But Rise of the Ronin picks up quite a bit as your investigation pushes you to start making friends with various people who either support the stability of the shogunate or think the country needs a new government. As time goes on, those different people develop into a separate faction that will require your help and which you can choose to aid. So while Rise of the Ronin has some elements that can frustrate or require some investment to make sense of, and weaker elements like some open world design that comes off as dated or some repetition level design, it does a great job of getting you invested in what's going on and the people involved. Bond missions in particular are a standout, but a mix of personal stakes and a large-scale politics make the historical story compelling all the way through. The longer you play Rise of the Ronin, the more characters you meet and spend time with, and the more you learn about its combat and its world, the better it becomes. While it took a while to find the rhythm of Rise of the Ronin's combat, its speed, complexity, and intensity make for some phenomenal fights that always feel great to win. Rise of the Ronin is a game that may take a bit to get good, but the commitment is 100% worth it. So players, that is a wrap on this video for the Rise of the Ronin review. I'm curious to hear all of your thoughts and opinions down below. Do you guys think this game is worth buying? Would you get this game? And do you think it is better than Ghost of Tsushima? I'm curious to hear all of your thoughts down below. So players, I really hope that you enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys all in Japan. Peace out.